All right, guys, so your quarter two art journal prompts are a little bit different than your quarter one art journal prompts. In quarter one, you dealt with the elements and principles of art. Well, for this quarter, you're going to deal with the purposes of art, which is why we make art. Why do artists make art? And you're going to be diving into that. So, as you can see here, it says, please use this Google document to guide you through creating your quarter two art journal prompts. So, when I click on this list, oh, a little hint, you have to always be in present mode to click on the links that I give you guys or the videos that I give you guys. And I click on this prompt list. It pulls me up to this nice Google document that goes over all the different objectives. So you will be creating 6 pieces of art in your art journal. Now, you shouldn't use the watercolor paper that's in your art journal because that is really kind of counted out for certain projects. But if you need extra watercolor paper, let me know. Instead, I recommend using any type of extra paper that you have. Extra drawing paper is a really good start if you need construction paper. But you can also make the art in your paperback book. I know a lot of you guys did that for quarter one. It's a great option for quarter two. Just as a reminder, this is homework over the whole quarter, aka it's that back burner art project. So when you finish one of our weekly modules early, hey, you can work on your quarter two art journals. It is completely open in a variety of media, subject matter, and expression. I want to see you use multiple types of media. I want to see you do different types of subjects, not all the same thing. And I want to see you pushing yourself and expressing yourself in different ways. There's a huge focus on creativity and originality. It is due at the end of quarter two, which is January 22nd. I'm going to float back to here real fast. And let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about grading. Grading is 120 points. It is 20 points per prompt. Each prompt's 20-point breakdown. You have 5 points for creativity, 5 points for thoughtfulness and craftsmanship, 5 points for connection of prompt, and 5 points for edge-to-edge completion. And we are going to be covering all of these purposes of art. 6 are required: artistic expression, ceremonial, functional, persuasive, narrative, entertainment, and psychological and healing is bonus. So I'm going to be going right now through each one of the purposes of art and giving you some prompt examples, giving you some peer examples. What I'm going to be reading off of, I'm not going to float back and forth, but this is where you can actually find your prompts on this Google document. Just as a reminder that these are the options of how you could respond to the prompt, what your journal entries could look like. So, for example, underneath artistic expression, you could take an art history interpretation, an art therapy interpretation, or your own individual interpretation of what you think it means to artistically express yourself. So, what is artistic expression? Artistic expression is the emotions, ideas, feelings, imagination, personal aesthetics. Aesthetics means like how you like things to look. Individual interpretation of beauty. Everybody views beauty in a very different way. So this is your chance to show that. So here's a bunch of different art history examples for you. So if you want to go the art history route, some good artists for you to look at are Jackson Pollock, which we talked about in quarter one. He is called Jack the Dripper, and he is an abstract expressionist. So he doesn't always actually draw things like here is an eyeball, here is an elephant. He's really just working with expressive lines. We have Mark Rothko, which is sitting in this chair over here. He is known for his color fields, which are meant to create a really great sense of calmness and almost meditative in the quality that they are. This would be a really great watercolor project. Helen Frankenthaler, you guys can see her here. Look at the huge canvas that she is pouring paint on. Like I have mentioned before, she's done paint pouring before anybody else did. We have Lee Krasner, which actually was married to, boom, this guy down here. Her work is really, really bold in color and uses a way thicker expressive lines than Pollock's. So she's a really interesting person to look at, and she does not get enough credit. Frida Kahlo, which I don't have on this slide, but she had completely her own aesthetic, completely her own thing that she wanted to do. And then we have Salvador Dali, who was always expressing his mind. He was expressing surreal, which you guys have learned about with your surreal collage. Some other art that's here, this is just like Instagram art that I found, artists that post things that they like. A lot of times it is very expressive. And when we say expressive, it doesn't just have to mean that they use abstract splatters and things like that. That's one way to express your art. This is my friend Hannah right down here, this magical cat art down here. She likes all things magical, cat related, kind of like Halloweeny type stuff. And her stuff is not splattered all over, but it's very graphic because that's who she is. That's how she expresses herself. For the art therapy interpretation, you could create a self portrait using bold, unrealistic colors to represent how you're feeling inside. A lot of times when people draw these eyes, they use colors to represent different emotions. If you want to do your own interpretation, just whatever you think artistic expression means to you, you can make. So here's some examples of your peers. Obviously, this one was inspired by the prior slide, but we see some doggies. We see a really cool rainbow and grayscale moon. These actually flip up, which is really cool. You see some really expressive lines here. This person really liked dance and drew dance-related imagery. This person really loved to draw chiaroscuro type drawings, and that was the way that she expressed herself as an artist. So do your thing. Next, we have ceremonial. Ceremonial is when you observe ritual, celebration, and commemoration. So we're going to actually look to a lot of different types of cultures for this. If you guys think about yourself, think about something that you celebrate, a birthday, Christmas, a holiday. I know that my family has traditions. Like every winter, we have a cookie bake-off where we bake like 15 dozen cookies. I could make a piece of artwork about that. So looking at art history / art culture, a good place to start is back in ancient Egypt. They were pretty famous for commemorating people, icons, gods, even animals, were very, 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 very well commemorated. And a lot of times with really expensive materials. Their mummification process is a huge commemoration ritual. Day of the Dead celebrations, if you guys have watched Coco, there's really great ways to honor and welcome back your ancestors in the Mexican culture. Ancient Greeks, they pretty much always wrote everything down that happened in their culture, and it was usually through pottery and different things like that. We also have African masks, which are well known for portraying lots of different types of spirits. And a lot of times those masks are worn in certain rituals to welcome different spirits, to welcome back different ancestors. We have henna tattoos, which is very popular in Indian culture. It's used at a lot of different types of celebrations. A really popular one being weddings. We have Native American totem poles, and you can see how much character is in each part of the totem pole. That's because it represents the different ancestors that have been in a tribe and been in a family. Hinduism, this little fancy little elephant god down here, Mr. Ganesh, that is part of a religion. And religion is hugely ceremonial. Religion is how artists have worked for thousands of years, as churches and different sects of religion would pay artists and commission artists to make art. We have the depiction of the Last Supper from the Bible, of course, made by the famous Leonardo da Vinci. So those are great art history examples. If you want to go more of an art therapy route, you could create a mandala, which is traditionally used for the ceremony of meditation. It's meant to calm you because of the repetitive nature of the lines, shapes, and colors. But you could connect the shapes and colors that you use to the emotions that you're feeling as you draw the mandala. Look at sand mandalas by the Tibetan monks. Holy moly, are they so addicting to watch. If you don't like the art history route or the art therapy route, you could do your own interpretation of what it means to have ceremonial art for you. Here's some examples of what students have done. You see a dream catcher, a Day of the Dead skull, a totem pole to represent this person's family. This is a mandala made with gel pens, which was really cool. I love this little Easter basket with some relief or three-dimensional elements. Same thing with the dream catcher up here. So those are all peers. Those are 8th graders that made art last year. Let's go on to functional. This one is really hard for people to wrap their head around. But functional, all it means is it's artistic objects used in everyday life, crafts, product design. I would really focus on the word here, product design. All that means is it's art that is meant to be used. So somebody comes up with the design, it's manufactured in a factory or made by artisans and then sold to the public. It's meant to be used. So when we take a look back at some art history, we have Frank Lloyd Wright right here. He is an extremely famous architect that made some crazy, amazing looking houses. I highly recommend looking him up if you are into architecture. Tinker Hatfield, this guy down here, he is the creator of the Air Jordans. He is a very funny character. He skateboards, he surfs, he does like every physical sport imaginable. And he just is a really great guy. He is still creating with Jordans today, and he's always trying to evolve the way that design works. So you could do a shoe design. Maybe you have an original shoe idea that you could do for functional. We have Dapper Dan, who is a current artist making art today. He is pretty famous for basically the way that a lot of designs have names or labels on them, or like the Gucci double G or LV for Louis Vuitton. Dapper Dan kind of created that idea, and other brands went with it and were inspired by him. Tiffany's, you could do some sort of jewelry design. Tiffany's, this is a jewelry designer right here, creating a topaz jewelry. Some other examples of functional design, anybody that does anything with Legos, people that crochet, people that do product design, fashion design. And by product design, I mean these two things pictured here is the actual creation of a new idea, a new product that's meant to be used. So here are some examples of some peers that have done some functional peer design. Oh, I forgot to go back and tell you guys, if you would like to do the art therapy interpretation, create an invention that can be used to regulate thoughts and emotions. So as humans, we have to regulate ourselves and check ourselves. Well, what's a way that you could have something do that for you? Here's some peer examples of what some possible artwork will look like. We see some jewelry, we see some shoes. This person wanted to make a vase, their own design for a vase. This person made some fashion design based off the words they found in their paperback book, which I thought was very clever. This is a product design for a new watch design. Persuasive. This is probably my favorite to look at with what you guys do, because I like to see what causes you're passionate about. But Persuasive are the artists that are responsible for advertising, marketing, and creating propaganda. So when we're talking about Persuasive, some good art history and examples to look at are Shepard Fairey. He's responsible for this hope image, and down here, this image also. He's on Instagram today. He's a contemporary artist, which means that he makes art now. He is this artist that basically breaks things down by values and uses really bold primary like color schemes to grab people's attention. He was a little bit of a street artist for a while, making art illegally. He got arrested multiple times, but he's a really outspoken artist on a lot of different types of causes. James Montgomery Flagg and J. Howard Miller are the artists that were responsible for these two posters that you've probably seen in your history books or history texts, I should say. This was a very big propaganda put out by the U.S. government. Actually, both of these were. But this one was to get people to sign up for the army, saying, like, we want you, we're going to take care of you, do Uncle Sam proud. Rosie the Riveter was during World War II. When the men were off to war, we had this great industrial revolution. We had these amazing factories in America, but we had no one to work there. So the women went back to work. This imagery has been used a lot in recent years with all the political women marches and things like that. We have Barbara Kruger, which I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, oh my God, this text is a Supreme brand. No, Barbara Kruger used it first. Supreme stole it. Supreme actually appropriates or borrows from a lot of famous artists. So if you're interested in some of her political statements, she would usually have a picture with words, red background and white text on top that was trying to say something. We have Banksy, which I know some of you guys know Banksy from different types of Instagram things. That is one of Mrs. Cantrell's favorite artists. And then, of course, things like ads are also persuasive. If you'd like to do an art therapy version of Persuasive, you could create a campaign, propaganda, or an advertisement for a cause that you're really passionate about. If you don't like any of those things, you can just create your own personal reaction to what you think it means to make persuasive art. Let's look at some examples. from your peers. We have just some nice positive message things. We have some things from popular culture, but I love how this student created the background photo and the red and white overlay, just like Barbara Kruger does. This is one that I love. If I was making some persuasive art, I would definitely say keep calm and make some art. We have a cool Skittles, what is this called? Billboard that goes off the page. Save some turtles. Those are all really great examples of persuasive art. Next, we have narrative. Narrative art is when you are telling stories, you're describing and illustrating experiences, you're communicating ideas and information, you're documenting historical events. It really is just a visual way to tell a story. That's all it is, guys. So some artists that are important to look at, and even some art history, is Norman Rockwell. He is a pretty famous illustrator, and you'll see his artwork all over, showing pretty much pictures of normal everyday life. We have cave art, one of the most ancient ways to tell stories and to show narration. Children's book illustrations. That is, I mean, when you're a kid, you learn to read stories through pictures before you learn to read them through text. We have Japanese scrolls, which are really famous for telling stories about natures and about different types of fables and things like that. And of course, the Renaissance artists. So the artists that are used to being commissioned to tell those sort of religious stories, those commemorative stories. They did a lot of things. I also have some examples of like Little Red Riding Hood. This is Alice in Wonderland. This is from Harry Potter, The Tales of the Beetle and the Bard. Even though somebody was in the movie auditorily saying the story, they still had a visual representation from an illustrator, which I thought was really cool. Here's some examples from your peers. We have things like comics. We have some children's type illustrations. We even have some original stories, which I think is a really cool thing. Next, we have art entertainment, or the purpose of art entertainment. Art that is meant to be enjoyed by others and viewers. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys, man, I'm the worst. For a narrative, if you want to do your own art therapy interpretation, you could create a tattoo sleeve that is autobiographical. That means about you, about your life, the good and the bad. Use symbolic imagery to represent emotions and memories. So that's why that tattoo sleeve is here. And of course, if you don't like any of these sorts of examples that you see here, you can do your own thing of what you believe narrative means. Okay. So entertainment is basically the art that you guys consume. And what I mean by that, it's what's on your phones, it's what's on your TV, it's what you hear in your ears, it's what's all around you, it's what you read. So here's a bajillion examples of entertainment. Some famous entertainer pioneers of course, Walt Disney, Pixar, Minalima. If you're a Harry Potter fan, I highly recommend following or looking up the House of Minalima. They are the graphic designers that are responsible for the way that all of the Harry Potter films look. They also just came out with a new illustrated version of what they believe the Harry Potter world should look like. You have people like Jack Kirby that were first responsible for drawing people like Captain America. I'm going to butcher this name, but you have Shigeru Miyamoto, who was responsible for, of course, Mario and Luigi. And art therapy. You could design a video game based off of a significant life event using an old school pixelation technique. That graph paper could be a really great way to do entertainment for you guys. If you don't like the art history or really the history that's around you, you can just do whatever you think entertainment means or make something that you think is entertaining for me. So here's some entertainment peer examples. Obviously, people just chose some things from peer culture. Peer culture. They are peers, Miss Brown. Popular culture. And they did their own versions of it. I like that this person that did SpongeBob did it with little dots. So they did it a little bit differently from what you've seen before. I've seen a lot of different graphic novels and comic book illustrations for entertainment. Extra credit is psychological and healing. Art has the power to heal, you guys. So the whole idea behind this one is the idea of art therapy, which is a therapeutic technique rooted in the idea that creative expression can foster healing and mental well-being. So we have some examples of artists throughout history that have used art to help them heal. One of the most prominent ones that people talk about is Van Gogh. A lot of you know the story of him cutting off his ear. Van Gogh suffered from some deep psychological issues, and art was always there to help him get through it. The Starry Night was painted because of Van Gogh's social and emotional issues. We have people like Edward Monk, who painted the screen down here. We have Jean-Michel Basquiat, who actually made art about a lot of social issues, but his own issues with addiction and different things like that. We have Louise Bouyes. She is an artist that had a lot of childhood trauma and put that trauma into her artwork. She did a lot of three-dimensional pieces. Frida Kahlo, you can see she is literally physically ill, and what is she doing? Painting. Spire Arts is a local organization in Dayton that teaches different types of people with a wide spectrum of learning disabilities or abilities, if that's how you choose to view it. And they use art as a way for those people to communicate. For art therapy, you could draw a raw emotion through the use of an abstracted figure. You could be expressive with colors, symbols, and textures. That an example of Charlie Chaplin is right here, but it's done in a really expressive, almost emotional, raw type of way. And you could create a piece of art based off your own reactions. So, like, however you're feeling when you think of, hey, art can heal you and art can get me through this, or maybe I'm really down and I'm going to make a piece of art about it. What does that look like to you? Here are some examples from your peers. We have obviously this person is kind of broken up into little pieces and kind of having a hard time. This person is showing a dot, 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 kind of alluding to a mended heart. And the idea behind this one right here is this is an artist dancing with their art and meant to show how you can really lean on and depend on art in your life to help you through it. So I cannot wait to see the 6 or 7 pieces of art that you create for quarter 2. Great job, guys.